At the end of the day, like a lot of people look at a lot of different metrics when it comes to measuring the dollar spent on marketing. The most important metric is cost per deal, not cost per lead, not cost per whatever, cost per closed transaction. That's what you really want to measure and really know what's the most effective medium bang for the buck.
How are you doing, Greg?
Good. How's it going?
It's going really good, man. It's going really good. Yeah. How about you? How's everything going with you?
Doing great.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for jumping on the call. I know people got tons of value from the last time you were on the call, so I'm looking forward to this one. You
Cool.
always
Yeah. Do we have
bring a
like the
bring a
same group or is this a different audience?
I mean, there might be some people from the previous group, but yeah, it's open to anyone. But so most of the people on this call are using REsimpli in their business, but active real estate investors. So yeah, Greg, whenever you're ready, yeah, if you just give a quick intro, and then we can just go from there. If you want to do Q&A format, we can do that. Or if you have a presentation that you prepared, we can do that. It's totally up to you.
Yeah. No, I think the best way to go is Q&A so that we can deliver what everybody's looking for
Absolutely.
based on what they're trying to do in their business. But yeah, serial entrepreneur, real estate investor, and developer. I started my career back in 1997 as a remodeling handyman contractor. Did 250,000 in revenues my first year. 7 years later, I built that into a $30 million building and development company. We were one of the largest builder developers in our area. And then I, scaled into real estate development after that and just started doing land development, commercial, multifamily, industrial, office, retail, pretty much everything. Also started a dozen different companies along the way, built them up, sold them off, most of them ancillary to the real estate and construction industry, a couple of them outside of the construction industry. And then also bought and renovated and flipped, hundreds of houses over the years. Started in the short-term vacation rental market on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So I was doing beach houses and multi-million-dollar beach houses, and I would buy hotels, tear them down, and build multi-million-dollar beach houses, or I would tear houses down and do infill development or build on vacant lots. And then in 2011, I moved to Charlottesville, Virginia, and started flipping houses here and doing infill development here, and I'm the guy that can help you scale if you're looking to scale your business and do, more in your business or do bigger deals or learn how to raise capital, whatever it is. I've done the whole gamut with not only the real estate and construction industry, but also in general, business as well. Own multiple restaurants, own multiple companies at the same time. And, in the residential business, I've got a lot of people I coach and mentor all over the country doing all kinds of things, flipping houses, doing development, doing multifamily, doing syndications. And when it comes to residential, I'm assuming pretty much everybody on here are either wholesalers or house flippers, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Primarily.
Yeah. Maybe some land flippers. I've got some people I work with that are, wholesaling land and doing entitlement flips and things like that. So if there's people interested, I can talk about that. But, when it comes to scaling, before we kick it off, the biggest thing that I find with people that I work with in the residential space, whether they're wholesaling or house flipping or even land flipping, when they think about scale, the big, buzzwords out there are deals per year, right? Oh, I do 300 deals per year. I do 500 deals per year. And, I coach some of those people, and some of those people are my friends in the industry, big names that are doing, hundreds of deals. That's not where it's at. You want to make the most amount of money in the least amount of time with the least amount of energy and the least amount of effort possible. So scaling isn't how many deals can I do. Scaling is how much money can I make in the least amount of time with the least amount of energy and effort possible. So think about that. Forget about transactions. Put a dollar number down that you want liquid, at the end of the year in your business, and then reverse engineer that. Because if you need $1 million, well, that's, 10 $100,000 transactions, or it's 50 $20,000 transactions, or it's 100 $10,000 transactions. So it's much easier to get there at 100,000 $500,000 $1 million clips, versus 5,000 or 10,000. So when it comes to scaling, I want to put that out there. The industry has this big hang up of transactions per year and volume and all that, and that's just not where it's at. So anyways, I'll just leave it there and just, let's go ahead and field some questions.
Yeah, Greg, you're speaking my love language. I used to be an accountant, and I've preached this so many times. I would much rather, like, people focus on top line number. They say I did 7 figures, but I always ask, would you rather have a 7-figure business and only take home like 50, 100,000, Would you rather have like $700,000-800,000 business and take home like $300,000-400,000? It's just people are so, fascinated with the vanity numbers. So yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. So Greg, let me ask you this. And guys, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or raise your hands or unmute, and then we can just go from there. So Greg, what have you noticed? You're very experienced. You're working with coaching clients that are doing hundreds of deals. What have you noticed separates people from, being in that mindset of doing 2 to 4 deals and focusing on, hey, I want to do 50 deals, 100 deals, versus changing their mindset to, yeah, I just want to focus on increasing my net profit. That's the number I'm going to go after. Even if I'd rather do 1 deal, make $1 million, and not do like hundreds of deals and still make that money. What is the shift that you notice happens with the investors that you're working with?
Focus. So, focus is 100% of the game. So knowing what the real, what the goal is, and then reverse engineering the path to get there. Hey, if you want to do 3, 4, 500 transactions or 1,000 transactions, nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do. But the key is to get clear on your goal first. What is it that you're trying to achieve? Is it a liquid number? Is it, just whatever that is. And if it's transactions, that's great. But that's number one, being clear on your goal so that you can focus on it, and then putting the proper, people, systems, and tools in place to be able to achieve that, finding success in that realm that you're looking for, and then just benchmark it, just reverse engineer it and just follow it, because wherever you're trying to get to, somebody else has already been there and done that before you. So just look at what they did and just repeat it, do it over. Success leaves clues, success leaves roadmaps. But the number one thing, for anybody that's achieved anything in any business, it's that clarity of the goal and 100% focus on, the 1 or 2 things that it's going to take to get you to that goal. And then you outsource, you hire out, outsource, and leverage everything else.
What do you think is the most important thing that an entrepreneur needs to focus on? You said people, processes, systems. Like, what do you think it's like the biggest thing that if the first lever that they need to go after?
So you got to understand your strengths first and your weaknesses. So focus on your strengths, operate in that zone of genius, and then outsource and hire out everything else. Forget about building on your weaknesses and developing your weaknesses. Focus 100% on your strengths and put yourself in a position to where that's all you do every day. Where entrepreneurs get messed up is that we're all like ADD, right? We're entrepreneurs, so we're creative. So we want to, we're doing all these different things, or we don't know how to organize our time, or we're not sure what we should be doing, or entrepreneurs can get caught in the trap of, control freak. Nobody can do it as good as me. Nobody can do this. Well, if you're finding yourself saying, I can't find good people, or nobody can do it as good as me, that's on you. So you're the leader. The leader sets the pace of the pack. The leader has to give the organization everything it needs to be successful: tools, training, systems, and support to be successful. But more importantly, clear direction and no uncertain terms exactly what's expected and when. You measure that performance and you hold it accountable to the goal. You need to understand your strengths and weaknesses, understand the people around you, what their strengths and weaknesses are, and put them in their sweet spots. So you can't take an accountant and expect that accountant to be, something that they're not. An accountant is, very specific. You can't take an accountant and expect him to go do surgery. You can't take a surgeon and expect him to go run a business. The people have their skill sets. So you want to find the right people for the right roles, and then turn them loose, to do their job. And then you coach them to success. So that's how I built all my companies. That's how I was able to scale. That's how I'm able to scale now. And that's what I do through people all over the country doing their things, is number one, help them identify what is your zone of genius? What do you need to be doing? And then, who do you need to become? What does your company need to look like? And who are the people you need to surround yourself to reach the goal that we started with? What is that goal? Who do you need to become? What does your business need to look like? And this is a business. And who do you need to surround yourself with to accomplish that goal?
That's great answer. And I agree with you. I am always focused on, I would rather keep doubling down on my strength and hire people that complement my weakness rather than work on my weakness. I feel like I get higher leverage on working on my strength. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
So
And you
let's
can
say if we
start
have,
small. So a lot of people, the first thing is, well, I don't have the money to hire anybody. You can start people part-time. My first company, the first key hire in any business is that administrator. You need somebody that can handle all of the administration of your business. And administration means everything. They manage the marketing, they manage, the lead flow, they manage, dispositions, they manage acquisitions, they manage renovations, they manage contract. I mean, the closing transactions. So that initial administrator, when you're first getting started, is a super key component. My first one that did the office management, the bookkeeping, the secretary, you know, the slash back in '97, before we were even using computers, everything was done by hand. I had that administrator, but I could only afford that person part-time. So I started them part-time, couple, 2, 3 days a week, whatever I could afford. And then as the business grew, because what that did was that bought me time and freed me up to do what I needed to be doing to grow the business. And, you know, again, it's going to boil down to what you're trying to do is going to boil down to 1 or 2 things you should be focusing on. And then you want to evolve into that role. So what it looked like for me was I was doing everything to start with. You know, I was literally swinging a hammer. I'd show up at your house, I'd give you the estimate, and I'd be the one doing the work. Next step was I hired an administrator to handle the bookkeeping and write up the estimates so I could be on the phone with her. You know, she would dispatch me and say, hey, so, you know, I'd start north, I'd head south, and I would do estimates. And then I would, you know, then I would go do the work and she would dispatch me, but she did all the estimating and all the billing and all that stuff for me. Then I got to the point to where I hired somebody to help me in the field. Then the next hire was another person. And then my third hire was somebody to watch them and lead the crew so I could step out. Now all I was doing was sales and running materials. And then as we evolved, I didn't even have to run the materials anymore. I was doing nothing but running sales. And then I had that administrative support that was doing all the paperwork follow-up. And then, you know, we got into computers and all that. So think about all of that. What are all the mundane things that you don't like to do that's sapping your energy and your time? Put an administrator in place, even if it's part-time, to handle all of those things that drain your energy so that you can just do, you know, that thing that you need to be doing.
So what if, let's say you start out like, which this is very typical of, you know, real estate investors. They start out, they do marketing, they're really good at, you know, going on appointments, like closing the deals. And let's say if their strength is going on appointments, acquisition side of it, right? They're really good at sales, but that's only going to get them so far. They're going to get to a saturation point. How do they, is it a mindset shift that they need to get, you know, trust someone else to go on the sales and then start, you know, raising themselves to the next level where they're not the ones going on appointments? Like, did you have a mindset shift because you were the one who was doing everything, right? But you must have been very intentional about, okay, I need to get away from working in the business and working on the business. Like, how did you have that mindset shift?
So always start with the end in mind. What is the goal? My goal was to build a company that operated successfully and even better without me than it did with me. So I didn't have any money. I didn't have any resources. I had no mentors. So when I started out, I had to do the work myself to generate the income to then hire the people and to pay for the systems to be able to replace me. So you need to understand how you're wired and who you are, because not everybody wants to be, you know, that entrepreneur that grows and scales a business. But if you're going to be in business and you want to grow and scale a business, you need to think about what is the end result of that business. Just like on a deal, right? You want to have multiple exits on a deal. When you go into a transaction, you already have the exit in mind. Here's what I'm going to do with this property. When you start a business, and all of you are in business, you need to have your exit in mind. What do I want with this business at the end of the day when I exit? Because guess what? We all liquidate. We all exit. Ain't nobody getting out of here alive, right? So eventually something has to happen to this business when you're done with it. So you want to build a business that can transcend you, that has value at the end of the day, that you can either sell or turn over, you know, to somebody else. So think about it from that perspective and think about what do you want to be. So, you know, I read some very instrumental books, you know, back in the day, one of which was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. A lot of people, you know, have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And most people get that they want to be Robert Kiyosaki and they want to do real estate. That's what they get out of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? Well, what I got out of Rich Dad, Poor Dad was I wanted to be Rich Dad. So Rich Dad was the guy that owned everything that everybody was coming to, and he was coaching and mentoring all these people in all of these businesses, and he wasn't doing any one thing. So I knew right away that what I wanted to do was put myself in a position to where I was leveraging the time and the talents of others to be able to build, you know, all of these companies and all these enterprises without me doing all the work. But I had to start. I had to get started somewhere. So you have to understand yourself first and foremost. Do I want to be a business owner, which is Rich Dad Poor Dad? It's all about going from employee to self-employed to business owner to investor. So do you want to be a self-employed individual? Do you want to be a business owner, which is somebody who owns a company, doesn't run everything, but that you're still running the business day to day, but you're not doing any one thing all day? Or do you want to be the investor that owns multiple businesses, multiple companies, multiple assets, and has everybody coming to you and you're managing multiple things and evolve to the level of investor where you don't have to be any one place at any given time? You have people, processes in place everywhere so that everything runs better with you than it does. I mean, better without you than it does with you, which is the mark of a great leader. So it all comes back to leadership. So you have to become, you ask that question, what does it have to happen in the individual? Number one, you got to make the decision. What do I want to be? And you have to, if you want to be a investor and a business owner, well, then you have to become the kind of leader. Who do you need to become, right? That can run all of these organizations and lead a team and put people and processes in place so that that system, that team runs better without you than it does with you, which is the true mark of a great leader, how well your organization runs without you.
Right. I agree. Lewis has a question. Would you recommend hiring a virtual assistant or a local assistant?
It really depends on what you're going to have them do. In this day and age, almost everybody's virtual. So, virtual assistants are a very easy, inexpensive way to start out, especially if it's, well, it depends on, really in this business, almost everything can be virtual now except for in-person sales appointments. And I didn't answer that question, but like if you're good at sales and you like running the appointments, you can only go so far with that, right? You can only talk to so many
Right.
people. So what you need to do is you need to train other people to take that over for you. And then you have to let go of that control. Like you said, some people just don't trust that somebody else is going to do it right. As a business owner, we need to understand, as entrepreneurs, nobody's going to do it the way we would do it. Nobody's going to do it 100% like we want. You have to get the business to a level to where it's operating functionally and serving the way you want. And you need to understand that, there's going to be different ways to get to the end goal as long as they're following the main, steps and processes. So that's up to you as a leader to put systems in place and train people so that you can scale that appointment setting. And then you stay on top of them and you coach and you mentor them in doing it. And then if you still really just want to take some appointments, you can. But the only way you can scale is you got to bring in and put those people in place. So for every aspect of the game, you can use virtual assistants. And if you're doing, virtual wholesaling, you can use virtual assistants. But if you're in a business, in a market where somebody has to meet somebody personally, then, you got to have them in
Yeah.
place and, on location.
All right. Jacob has a question. Since Greg mentioned raising capital, Greg, can you speak to best practices for sourcing funding private money lenders since you've done so many large projects in development?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways to raise capital. So private lenders, for individual real estate deals, that's one thing. And what you want to do is develop your private lending program. So it's all about trusting, it's that know, like, trust, right? You've heard that. People need to know who you are, know what you do, and know what you're looking for. People need to be able to trust that you're a professional, that you know what you're doing, and you show them that by your track record. If you don't have a track record, then you partner with somebody who does. But you got to be an expert, right? The way you convey trust is by knowing your business, knowing your market, and being an expert. So when that lender asks you, well, what are you going to do? I'm going to flip this house. Where? Over here on the east side of town. Why? Well, that's the hottest market. How do you know? Because properties are selling within days, over asking price, and there's no inventory. So that shows without even looking at anything that you know your stuff. You know what the market is, you know what the inventory levels look like, you know what the values and the prices and things like that are. And then they'll say, well, what's your construction experience? Say, well, I don't have any construction experience, but I know how to manage people. I've done all these projects. I know what all the labor costs. I know, how much it takes to do these types of houses. I've got it drilled down. So you just have to convey that you're an expert. That's how they will trust you, as well as, being a good person and trustworthy and all that kind of stuff. And they got to like you, right? If somebody doesn't like you, they're not going to want to do business with you, no matter how much money you could potentially offer them. So those are the three elements. So with private lenders, you want to develop your private lending program, and you want to let people know the opportunities that you have. And it's a contact sport. You have to. So when I say develop your private lending program, how does it work? Do they get a note and deed of trust with a, interest rate once the loan is paid off? So, hey, you loan me $100,000. I'm going to buy and renovate this house. When I sell the house 3 months down the road, you get all your money back plus a 10%, preferred return. So that's your private lending program. The way we secure your money is a first deed trust on the property. So whatever your system or your process is for how you borrow money and how you're going to use the funds, You put that together, put it on paper so you can hand it to them, email it to them. That's your private lending program. This is what we pay. This is how it works. This is how your money is secured. This is what the sources and uses. This is what the funds go to. We're going to use it to buy the property and renovate it. And you put up all the money, we'll do all that. That's one way. Another way, you can joint venture with people. You put up all the money, I'll do everything else. We'll split the profits 50-50, 60-40, whatever. It's up to you. It's really going to boil down to what are your investors, who are your investors, and what kind of return are they looking for. But generally, people are going to want to get 10 to 12% on their money, or they're going to want to split the profits with you. And then if you're syndicating big deals, that's different. So that's where you've got Security Exchange Commission rules and laws that you need to understand at the state and federal level. There's a process that you need to go through. You can only take accredited investors or a limited number of non-accredited investors. You can't do general solicitation with certain filings. Other filings, you can do general solicitation, but it's accredited investor only. So you need to understand the different types of rules and laws around raising capital, the SEC, what the different types of exemptions are that you have to file with the SEC so you can raise capital and take investor money. But for residential, just doing private lending one house at a time is usually the best way to go. Another way is through banks. Banks will give you a line of credit, either on properties you have, on a business you have, or just personally, a revolving line of credit. So depending on your balance sheet and your net worth, you can go to a bank and say, hey, set up $1 million line of credit. I'm going to use it to flip houses. So they will do that for you. They'll do that for you for building spec houses as well. There's also private lenders and hard money lenders that will give you a line of credit as well as do private loans for you. And then all you have to come up with is the down payment. And then, if you're really strapped and you really don't have any money, one of the things I taught one of my guys that never did a deal before was how to do a subject to transaction and how to get the contractor to front the construction. And then he did a split on the back end. So basically he took title to the property, left the loan in place, from the seller. He brought the contractor in, needed $30,000-$40,000 worth of work, said, look, give me a bid on the property. The guy gave him a bid and say, I tell you what, how about if I pay you when the house sells, instead of $40,000 that you said it would cost, I'll give you 45. And the guy said, I'll float you 90 days for an extra $5,000. So he ended up doing the deal that way and made $60,000 on his first deal with no money out of his pocket, did a subject to. I mean, it cost him $400 or $500 to do the closing, but he borrowed that from somebody else, a family member, to get the closing done, to pay for closing costs. Contractor did all the work, sold the house, paid everybody off, walked away with 60 grand in less than 6 months on his first deal. Never done a deal before, never had any money. Another way to do it is, get the seller to deed you the house, you do the work, and then you do some sort of split with them on the back end, or, they can deed or not deed the house. It depends. I always like to go ahead and let them deed the house to me, and then I do the renovations and then pay them off when it sells. If you have the money, you can do it that way. You can borrow the renovation cost from somebody else. A lot of different ways, like you've heard novations and things like that. But you could also do a joint venture with the property owner. Say, look, you throw the house in, I'll bring the money to do the renovation, and when it's done, we'll pay your house off. So let's say they want more than you can pay for the house. Say, but the house needs renovation. Say, I'll give you your asking price, but you give me control of the house. I'll do the renovations. When it sells, we'll pay you off, and then I'll give you a percentage over X. So there's a lot of different ways to structure those types of deals. But those are some creative ways if you don't have a lot of money to get started and do credit lines and stuff.
So my follow-up question to that, Jacob, let me know if you have any follow-up questions to that. One question I have on that is, like, initially when you're starting out, like you're just new in the business, you're gonna reach to, you're gonna use your personal money, friends and family. That's how at least I got started. What would be the next set of contacts you go after about raising money?
So anybody outside the network. So again, it's a contact sport, just like finding motivated sellers. You got to do the same thing. So it's a funnel. So you need an investor funnel. So you need a way to reach them. So you do that through one-to-many is the best way. So you can do webinars like this where you put, messaging out on Facebook. You can do, YouTube channels, show them what you do, where you let people know, hey, we work with private lenders on our deals. If you're interested in putting your, cash to work, let me know. So there's messaging you can use that's legal, with Facebook advertising. When you show off, say, hey, I had an investor that made X amount of dollars on this deal. If you have, cash sitting on the sidelines, give me a call. I'll show you how it works. Or you can do events. and you can invite people to come and you do a webinar like this online and talk one to many. It's the best way to do it. And then you do a presentation and show how it works. Networking, pretty much anywhere you go, there's people with money, especially right now. There's a ton of money just sitting in money markets right now, earning 5%, like over $1 trillion. It's either 1 or 3 trillion of money. I think it's 3 trillion in money markets right now, just sitting around. People have self-directed IRAs they can use to loan, money to you. So, wealth managers know those people. They encourage their clients to, invest in real estate and do alternative investments. And there's a lot of people that do private lending that if you just let people know and ask, right? So whenever you're talking to somebody like your family, say, do you know anybody else that would like to get involved and do these deals like you and I are doing? So you always want to ask if they know anybody else or if there's anybody else that they can think of that, you should talk to. But the biggest thing is just networking, being involved in, just community groups of, entrepreneurs and business people that, have resources and funds. You want to hang out where the money is, charity events, community events, golf tournaments. Then there's deliberate groups, meetups, Facebook groups, things like that. For real estate investing, where you can go where a lot of private lenders go that look for deals and look for people to invest in. A lot of private lenders go to real estate meetups looking for good, qualified people to invest with. There's a lot of people looking for money, but not all of them are worthy of it. So they'll go there, looking for, good people to do deals with. So,
That's how I found my private money lender, just going to local REIA meeting.
yeah, and Facebook's powerful. Facebook and Instagram, you can do boosted posts, you can run ads, and you can show a project that you did. Hey, we just did this deal. We flipped it with our investor. Investor made 10K in 90 days. If you want to learn how to get these kind of returns, let me know. So you can go post that in Facebook groups. You can start your own Facebook group for, your own private lending group. Hey, come learn how you can be a private lender. You can lend to me and other people. So teach people how to become private lenders and teach them all the things that they need to know. And you can develop a lead magnet, like a little PDF, 10 things you need to know to be a private lender, or 10 ways that you can make, an extra 10% on your money just sitting in the bank. So think about it like you're marketing for motivated sellers for your property. You need to do the same thing for investors and create a funnel. And like Carrot, I think, has investor web pages and stuff like that you can drive traffic to get them to fill out a form, what their name is, what they're interested in, how much money they have to invest. Same thing that real estate syndicators do, that are syndicating big apartment buildings. They're running ads to their investment opportunity. They bring people in through a form, an opt-in form, to get them into their investor system. And one of the questions is, are you accredited? How much do you want to invest? And when would you like to be involved in these investments? So that way, how much money somebody has they're looking to invest, when they're looking to place it, and those types of things. And then you've got them on your list, and you can do webinars, you can do emails, things like that. But at the end of the day, it's a lead generation system that you need to put in place to generate, investor leads.
Great answer. Kevin, you mentioned profit first for real estate investing. Did you have any question on that, or were you just sharing that?
No, he was mentioning about the top line, and I was just at a mastermind, and then this book was brought up that it's not really, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep in your pocket. Right. So profit first is about the principle of paying all the expenses, and what's you got to pay yourself too. So that's part of profit first. It's from the other book by Michael.
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, Profit First. It's a great book, but it's simple like budgeting. I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. I used to be an accountant, so I think of it as a budgeting. I think there's another good book. I don't know, Greg, if you've heard of it, like Simple Numbers. That's a really good book. It's a little bit higher level. I mean, I guess like Profit First, it's a little bit higher number, which I found it more relevant. But any thoughts on that, Greg, you have?
Yeah, that's a good point. Profit first. Yeah, it's all about paying yourself first and budgeting and things like that. And, on the topic of the 300 to 500 deal a year guys. So a lot of those people, they don't have any money. So it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep, right? Anybody can make $1 million. Hanging on to it is the other, it takes a genius, right? Any fool can make $1 million. It takes a genius to keep it. I don't know where that quote comes from, but I've used it my entire career. But, I was amazed how many people, when I went to some, high profile masterminds, to do some speaking. I met a lot of people that were doing tremendous deal volume. One guy was doing 1,000 deals a year, and flipping houses, wholesaling some flips, and had no money. And it was really amazing. And the interesting thing was, and you guys would know these names of these people that, if I told you, when I went to these, I only went to a couple of them, and it was years ago. They, some friends of mine invited me to come speak. And the two things that really struck me that were really interesting, that was everybody who was wholesaling wanted to get into flipping, and everybody who was flipping wanted to get into wholesaling, right? They were like, I'm tired of wholesaling, I want to flip. And this guy, I'm tired of flipping, I want to wholesale. But, and they all had turned their teams over multiple times, because the biggest thing that they don't know and didn't learn was it's a business. You have to run it like a business, and it starts with the leader. So you have to become a leader first, a leader, delegator, motivator, right? So you have to train yourself as a leader, develop yourself as a leader. So I didn't just wake up one day. I mean, I'm kind of a natural born leader. My dad was a leader in the military, so I was kind of raised with, discipline, and I was always kind of, in any organization, I was always picked as the captain or the leader or whatever. And, so I kind of had that instilled in me. But I also developed myself and trained myself. I didn't go to college. I went in the Navy right out of high school. Went in, enlisted, did 4 years, got out, and then I just started working. And I'm a hard worker and I'm a fast learner, but I always educated myself, always reading, listening to books on tape. Back when it was the Sony Walkman cassette player, and then it was the CD player, and then the 80 gig iPod. I still have an 80 gig iPod with just nothing but business books and self-development and professional development and investing books and all that. And today, my iPhone have no music on it. It's always just self-development, personal, professional. I mean, I'll listen to music occasionally, but I don't have any on my phone. The only downloads I have, it's all personal, professional development, education resources. To this day, I'm still consuming, reading, learning, talking to people, things like that. So you have to develop yourself first and foremost, into who you need to become, so that then you can transform your business into what that needs to look like. And then, the better you get, the more competent you get, the smarter you get, the better the quality of people you'll be surrounding yourself with, your investors, your mentors, your employees, your subcontractors, vendors, suppliers, everybody and everything, up levels with you along the way. So that's the key. Develop yourself, develop your teams, develop your systems, and, pour into, them as well, so that everybody comes along, and then understand that this is a business. You're running a business, and it takes, it takes leadership, and it takes direction, and it takes, constant, somebody's got to be on this business, managing the aspects of this business. So you become a leader, delegator, motivator, and you can turn that over to somebody else and let them run day to day while you stay on top of them and coach them.
Brian, you had a question?
Yes, absolutely. If I could, Greg, you have a heck of a background. It sounds like you talk to a lot of people. I'm not going to talk on behalf of REsimpli, but I think most of the people here are first and foremost marketers. We are market for deals every way. We're constantly looking for marketing channels, effective way to find deals. For what it's worth, as you know or don't know, Greg, the government spoiled all our fun last year. A lot of us were getting deals with text messaging. A lot of us were very successful with it. That's all gone now. One of the ways I'm being successful now is doing a lot of good cold calling, a lot of dialers. Is there any good, marketing that, if ever you're talking to, anything marketing that's being effective, that's working, that you could share with us, that we could consider implementing into what we're doing?
Yeah. So as you know, there's nothing new under the sun, right? So everything that's being done has been done. The key is to know your KPIs, watch them and monitor them. And if you're in multiple markets, what I've really learned is different things work in different markets. Some markets, TV works really well, and there's some people that do nothing but TV. Other markets, cold calling does really well, and some people do nothing but cold calling. Some markets, direct mail still works and works really well. Newspaper ads work well in some markets with some demographics. Believe it or not, there's people that still get the newspaper. So it really, a lot of it just depends on finding what works for you, really watching your list. But here's the biggest thing: follow up and follow through. Where the biggest mistake people make is they'll spend all the money and they have great marketing, but they have poor follow up. So you got to be, it's speed to lead. You got to be, when they're there, when they call, you got to answer the phone or have somebody answering it for you. You got to follow up and follow through. Don't give up after, 1 or 2 follow-ups. Stay on them, 10, 15, 20 times until they just cut you off. So never give up. If you're doing something that you're not getting a response, so if it's, cold calling and they're not answering the phone or whatever, look them up and mail them. If you're getting direct mail, back that didn't go, then look them up and call them. You know, so just make sure you cross all those channels over and then really drill down to those KPIs to find out what's working where, and, you know, what your best methods are. You know, signs are still really good, not necessarily bandit signs, but if you're flipping or whatever, putting signs out in front of houses, you know, things like that. I know people that letter their cars up. You may or may not want to do that, but that's effective. You know, just having your messaging out there. And if you want to own a market, do it all. Billboards, signs, vehicles, radio, TV, direct mail, you know,
Cold calling.
voice broadcast or cold
Yeah.
calling, you know, just do all three and then watch what works best where. And, you know, and then geographically, you know, work your locations. That was another thing that came up. You know, a lot of people that do direct mail just do a shotgun approach and they mail everything. You can really drill that down into zip codes and areas. So you really want to pay attention to where do your deals come from? Where do the most profitable deals come from? And what does that avatar look like? What does that seller look like? Develop that seller profile and go after them. Once you've nailed that, then you can nail that anywhere in the country. You know, it becomes really effective. So it's really more data driven than anything else. You know, mediums are mediums, reaching people's reaching people. At the end of the day, you're going to get extremely valuable data from those KPIs of, you know, where are those deals coming from? What do they look like? What's the profit on them? And at the end of the day, like a lot of people look at a lot of different metrics when it comes to measuring the dollars spent on marketing. The most important metric is cost per deal, not cost per lead, not cost per whatever, cost per closed transaction. That's what you really want to measure and really know what's the most effective medium bang for the buck.
I will figure, like, the accountant in me is so happy with Greg's answer. I was talking to an investor yesterday. He has been with us for 4 years. He was doing 120 deals. Now he's doing 60 and making more money. He really looked at his number and realized where he's actually making money and what marketing channels are not working. I mean, some of that has to do with like market also going up, but he's so efficient, like laser focused on the type of deals that are working for him and making way more money by doing half the deals. So yeah, it's all about like keeping track of your numbers and data.
One last thing, when you're talking to sellers and whoever your cold callers all are, you know, just like on when you're looking for investors, you know, who else do you know that I need to meet or that might be interested? The most valuable thing that I can give you today is if you're doing it or whoever your cold callers are, the last question you ask any seller, whether it's a yes or a no, the last thing you ask them is, do you have any other property you'd like to sell? Or do you know anybody that has any property they'd like to sell? And, you know, don't discount whatever they come up with because you might be able to, you know, move something to somebody somewhere. But that last question, you never know. You might be talking to somebody who has 20 houses, but they're only talking to you about the one. So do you have any other property you'd like to sell? Or do you know of anybody who has any property they'd like to sell? Well, you know what? My boss mentioned the other day, or, you know, one of the people I work with, or, you know what, I got a cousin over here that said something. So always ask that last question.
Greg, good point. Thank you for sharing that. That actually, that last piece, thank you. That's actually all. That's killer.
That'll dig up some deals. You'd be surprised.
Absolutely. Thank you, Greg.
Greg, one question I have for you. This is something I'm struggling with, or I'm realizing that it's so important to hire absolutely like quality people, like hire quality, pay them fair price. They're going to stick with you longest. Like your turnover cost is going to be low. How do you go about hiring like top people? You know, you could have the best system, but if you don't have the right people like following, you know, the systems you've built, like it's not going to work. What are your thoughts on that? How have you built an incredible team? You know, you went from like 250,000 first year to like 30 million in 7 years. That's incredible. I mean, you could have only done that with system processes and the right people. Can you share some insight on that?
Yeah, so I went after people doing, like I said, find somebody who's doing what you want to do, who is where you want to be, and go hire them or partner with them and bring them into your business. So I went after, I wanted to build multi-million-dollar beach houses. I've never built a house before. So what did I do? I went to the top company that had been there for 20 years building the types of houses I wanted to build. And I hired their top people to come work with me and help me build the company. So whatever role you're trying to fill, you know, you want to look at, well, where can I find the best candidate to fill this role? And it's, you know, somebody who already has done it, you know, been there, done that, knows the business or whatever you're trying to accomplish. So it starts there in terms of recruiting, right? So it's all about recruiting. And you got to cast a wide net. Just again, it's a funnel, just like motivated sellers. You guys are marketers. You're going to market for employees. So you put that word out everywhere, LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere. You can run ads on Indeed and start bringing them in. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to audition. Okay. So for whatever role it is, tell them, hey, send me your resume with give them a very specific way to apply for the job. So the more detailed the person is, like if I want to hire an accountant, I'm going to give you a very detailed process to apply for a position with me, where I'm going to ask for, your resume with references, attached in a separate document, right? So whatever, send it to me in a Word document, 2 separate documents. I'm going to ask for very detailed, specific ways for you to apply for the job. And my first, red flag is, did you do what I asked you? Did you follow the instructions? So for whatever role it is, you want to audition them through the application process before they get to the interview. So have them submit, obviously the resume, have them submit a video of themselves, why they would be a great fit, for your company. And then depending on how many people you have, you can hold, something like this. You can say, okay, we're gonna do the first round on a Zoom. And you can just quickly go through and just do a quick interview with people on Zoom. And then you narrow it down there and you invite the ones back. But the key is you want to do multiple rounds of auditions. You want video. You want to see what they look like, how they present, get that feel with them. You can meet in person if you're looking for somebody in person on site. Do something at lunch. So if it's a high level position, have multiple meetings. Have them come into your building. If it's, if you're executive level type talent, have them come into your building, look, let them meet your team, that kind of thing, get feedback from your team, meet them at lunch, meet them at dinner, meet them at 3 different times. So you can kind of over 3 different, days. So you can really get a good feel for what they're like in different environments. That's for higher level stuff. For lower level stuff, you can do one to many, where you do, the first round is going to be, this kind of format. And then you want to challenge them, for what they're doing, and have them present their best case of why they're the best person for the job. And, especially if it's salespeople, you really want to challenge a salesperson, with something like, when you get it down, or you can even challenge them in a group setting, I'm just not seeing top producer talent here. I'm just not seeing it. And then
Oh,
see how
wow.
they respond.
That's
So
amazing.
you want to,
Yeah.
you want to challenge them. Now, if you're looking for technical people, whether it's, virtual assistants or whatever to work your marketing systems, audition them, sit them down in front of a computer or get on a Zoom with them and say, okay, show me. Bring this up and show me how you do leads and, whatever your system is. Bring up the CRM, show me how this works, show me, so audition them, make sure that they can actually do what it is you want them to do. And if it's field supervisions and you're looking for somebody to do work out in the field and project managers, stuff like that, you're going to want to quiz them technically. If you're not, if you don't know the business well enough, have somebody quiz them and then take them out to the field and look at a job and just tell me what you see. How much do you think it would cost to take that wall out? We think a painter would charge to do this. How much do you think that roof is going to be? How would you go about the process of doing, this or that or the other? What if you find a little bit of rot here? So, you want to ask them deep questions to just kind of make sure that the way they see things and think, is in alignment with yours. And then again, some of the best questions. So, you can train people, right? You want good attitude. You want to hire attitude. You can train skill sets, but if you want to really accelerate, you need skill set and you need attitude. So when it comes to the attitude part, you want to ask them, what they didn't like about their last jobs and listen to how they respond to that. And you can find toxicity real easy by asking somebody that. If people want to dwell on negative and talk about negative and all of that kind of stuff, then you've got somebody who's negative. But if they're like, hey, everything was great, wonderful, just wasn't the right fit, this one, I couldn't advance, then you got somebody different. But if they start going down the rabbit hole, and you always want to ask deeper questions. So when you're interviewing, where people go wrong, entrepreneurs, is they want to talk about the business and themselves and their vision. Don't do that. This, the right person can, make all the difference in the best ways. It can make all the difference in the worst ways. So spend as much time as you can, or more time, listening than you do talking. So just keep that in your head and ask deeper questions. So when you ask a question and they answer, tell me more about that. If you feel something, is kind of off, can you expand on that a little bit? Well, what about, you said this over here, tell me more about that. So just keep asking those follow-up questions and try to get, personal in terms of their challenges and their struggles, asking them about their past positions. What was the worst challenge you ever faced? What was your best, success? How did you handle this difficult situation? How would you handle that situation? You want to find out how they are under pressure and difficulty. And then the last thing you ask them, and this is huge, the last thing you ask them is, when I call all of your references, and even some you didn't list, what are they going to tell me about you? So like, you didn't give me all of your best references. So if I go and find out some of your other references that you didn't give me, what are they going to tell me about you? And then you'll know, real quick based on, oh yeah, no problem, man. They'll just tell you, this, that, and the other, or if they kind of hesitate and stutter, then, you might have a problem.
That's a great question to ask. I love that. I'm going to steal that. Greg, how do you go about, it's easy to test someone for the skill that they have, right? But it's important, like I'm a big believer that there's any skill, for the most part, you can teach anybody any skill. You can tell them, hey, go take this course, learn this skill. And, it may take some people, it may take a month, some 2 months, 3 months, but you can always teach them. But how do you find someone who's a great cultural fit? Who's going to be part of the team, who's going to be like excited, like the person with the right attitude? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so that's where asking those questions. So spending the time to kind of really understanding them and asking them questions that are important to you. So the culture of the company is huge. So, the culture that I built in my company was, catching people doing things right, helping people feel good about themselves. The whole 1 minute manager system. That's the management system I used in my business, the 1 minute manager system. There's 3 books in the series. The new 1 minute manager, that's the first book. Putting the 1 minute manager to work, that's the second book. Leadership in the 1 minute manager, that's the third book. That's how I built all my companies, was off of that management philosophy. So everybody in my organization was required to read those. And we talked about them in our weekly meetings. And we, used and promoted everybody to use that system with every aspect of the organization. Another thing is personality profiling. So we did DISC personality profiling. This is what I have all my clients use. And that is where you can understand yourself and understand other people. So you know how to approach them, and you know what people's general personality, bents are. So you can put the right people in the right role. But really, at the end of the day, you've got to get down to, what do these people believe at their core? And you get to that by asking deeper questions, listening, looking for clues, and asking them how they handle difficult situations, difficult people, things like that. And then ask them, what are these people going to say about you? When I call them, what are they going to tell me about you? Are you a team player? Whatever your values are you a team player? Do you care for others? Do you put service above self? If you're in a very difficult situation and you have to reprimand somebody, how are you going to handle that? So you just ask those questions, and you can kind of see what their philosophy is, in those regards.
No, this has been fantastic. This is something we're realizing in our business also is so important. It is to hire the right people, pay them very competitive salary. They're going to stick with you for a long time, and they're going to buy into the vision of the company. It's not about just showing up as, of course, they want to make good money, but then it's about something bigger than just making money. It's not just a paycheck. They're coming for something bigger. So yeah, that's been something we're going through in our company, just changing. We absolutely have to have the right people. Like, do you agree with like hire slow, fire fast? When you hire someone, do you give them like a 90-day probation period, or once you've hired someone, then you're going to kind of stick with them for a long period?
Yeah, no, I don't do any of that. So what I do is the initial is we lay out, hey, the culture of this organization is extremely important to us. Here's what we believe in. And we're going to know real quick whether this is a good fit for you and whether you're a good fit for us. And if it's not a good fit, we're going to know really fast, because generally you do. And we're going to part ways. And if it's a good fit, great. We're going to keep moving down the stretch. But, there is no like 30-day trial period. We're going to know really quick. And generally, real fast whether this is a good fit. And, you can kind of see those red flags fire off really quick. And if there's red flags, and you got to cut that cancer out before it infects the whole bunch. Because like I said, the wrong hire can make all of the difference in a bad way. Worst characteristic of an entrepreneur that shows weakness and lack of commitment to your team. There's no better way to show it than to not get rid of, somebody who's bringing the organization down or holding it back. That shows weakness of leadership. People will not respect you. So if you've got a problem, you need to eliminate it quickly. And that's where they will understand how much you care about them, by how quickly you resolve and eliminate, problems and roadblocks that's holding the whole organization back.
How often are you meeting with with your direct reports, and what sort of like feedback are you giving them? And are you also asking them for feedback on your leadership?
Yeah, so we always had an open door policy, right? So full disclosure, bad news first, non-recourse meetings. So when we had our weekly meetings, it was non-recourse. If there's an issue, you have an issue with me, let me know. And you can come to me anytime, but the weekly meetings, this is your chance. But if there's something critical, my door is always open. So we generally had weekly meetings and they were very focused, and my reports had to prepare the agenda so that we were in and out. We didn't spend time small talk. Here were the KPIs we're looking at. Here's what we're trying to achieve. Here's, they would set their own goals. They would hold themselves accountable to the goal. So that's how we did it. And it could be, weekly, it can be monthly, and it can be quarterly. So, it depends on your organization and what your goals are. In most of these businesses you guys are running, you got to be on it weekly minimum, looking at your KPIs, your goals, things like that. Excuse me, to keep the organization on track. Bigger organizations with bigger departments, you can kind of do stuff maybe twice a month or once a month, depending on how it's all structured. But generally, you're going to have, the line employees on a weekly basis, then management minimum of, once a month, and then executive, if you're at hierarchies, at least every quarter. And it's always good to bring, everybody together and put people's results up in front of each other. So if you have different, divisions in different areas doing different things, or if, the same process, but in different parts of the state or different, parts of the country, bring your leaders up from the different areas and have everybody show what they're doing, what their numbers look like, so everybody can kind of troubleshoot everybody. And don't assume that sales can't help somebody in in renovations, and dispositions can't help somebody in sales or everybody can kind of contribute to everybody. So you always want to make sure that if there's an issue you're trying to resolve, everybody has the opportunity to put input in, because that's where the good ideas are going to come from.
And I think it's also good to just highlight, I might be in sales, but it might be good for me to know kind of what's going on the operations side, just as like you feel a little bit more connected with the company, and you're not just in your silo of like sales or any department that you have. So that's what we've started doing. Just share, hey, this is kind of some highlights, top 3 to 5 highlights from our marketing department, our customer support, our development department, just so that everybody feels like we share in a common Slack channel. Hey, this is kind of what's going on in other departments. You may not communicate, but just still good to know kind of, hey, all the effort that you're putting in, this is how it's impacting our marketing or sales or customer support. So we've gotten some good, great feedback on that.
Yeah, everybody needs to know the overall goal, and they need to know how their department contributes to that goal, and they all need to be able to share in the success. So that way they can all help each other, and just kind of cross reference and cross resource and troubleshoot.
Greg, if you want to share your contact information, if you're okay with that, if somebody wants to be in touch with you and kind of, have some more follow-up questions.
Yeah, so the best way to, reach me or get a hold of my stuff is gregdickerson.com. That's where all my information is. I've got a YouTube channel, podcast, all kinds of information on there. Yeah, that's the best place to go to get all my resources, gregdickerson.com.
Quickly grab a link, and I'm going to put it on. All right, here we go. It takes me to Dickerson International.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so I'm going to put the link, and this is where it forwards. Oops. It forwards to right here.
So one thing I just want to leave everybody with is, this is, difficult times out there in some markets. We're still in kind of a transition with the higher interest rate environment, but there's opportunities in every market. As the market is booming, you want to lead the market up, right? Meaning, when the market is booming and it's wide open and rates were down like we saw over the last few years, you can lead the market up by paying a little bit more than you did the last time, because, values are going up. But we flipped. In a lot of markets, you got to be careful. Values are declining, and they're declining fast, not like below pre-pandemic levels, but from these obscene levels that we've seen with, zero interest rates. So you want to lead that market down. So you sold yesterday at 300,000, you might only be able to sell at 275. So you got to buy a little lower. Tomorrow, you might only be able to sell at 250. So you got to buy a little bit lower. Lead the market up, lead the market down. Know where you are in the market cycle, peaks and valleys, right? I went through 2008 and 9. I went through the 80s, 90s, 2008 and 9, and here we are again, where interest rates are not coming down anytime soon. So, a lot of people thought rates would come down by now. They are not coming down anytime soon. So you need to be prepared for that, need to understand that, and just always be ready, to take advantage of different market conditions as they change. And, it's a very different market. It's still very strong and very healthy in a lot of markets. and it's correcting heavily in other markets. So
Okay.
just understand, you know, where you are, have multiple exits for all your deals. I can sell, I can lease, I can owner finance, I can rent to own, I can short-term, mid-term, long-term rent, have multiple exits on all your deals. Don't get yourself locked into financing that you can't convert or get out of, you know, thinking rates are going to come down or go up or whatever it is. You know, always make sure that your deal works as is on its own right now, and that you can fire sale that thing to get out of it if you have to and get your money back, or maybe take a little bit of a loss. And don't be afraid to take a little bit of a loss, right? At the end of the day, you're going to average your year out, and you're better off if you can't do anything with that deal, just get it off the books and move on to the next one and free that capital up versus just hanging on to that thing and watching it keep dipping.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we took a loss in a deal like when the interest rates started going up. We bought something way out of our swim lane, and I ended up losing like $50,000 on that, but was happy to get it off our books and like, okay, we learned a very expensive lesson. Stay in our lane. Yeah. Brian, did you have any last question or comment?
No, that's it. Thank you so much. I just appreciate both of y'all. I think
Yeah.
it's very important to consider that, you know, things are getting a bit wild out there, that with the heightened interest rates, we got to be on guard.
Absolutely. Greg, thank you so much. As always, you bring so much information. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate. Thank you so much for coming on the call.
Yeah. Have a great week.
Thank you. Take
See you
care,
guys.
guys. Thanks. See you
Keep
guys next
crushing
week.
it.